Hello guys, and welcome to part 2 of a 3-part tutorial series that I'm putting together for a modern bathroom in Blender 2.9. So if you haven't already seen part 1 where I covered the modeling for this scene over here, go ahead and check it out on my channel. So in this part 2, I'm going to be taking you step by step through the process of setting up some lights, a HDRI that I'll show you where to download. You can find that in the description below, including these textures that we're going to be using. We're going to be setting up some really basic materials, setting up our camera, our render settings here, all that sort of stuff to get this kind of effect going here. So once again, check the description below. So let's get started with part 2. What we're going to do to get started is we're going to go over to our render settings first of all. Now you can work in cycles if you want, but I'm going to be working in EV. It does a pretty good job, so we're going to leave it as default, which is EV. We're going to come here and enable ambient occlusion, and that's really important, so make sure to enable that. We're also going to enable bloom, and most importantly, screen space reflections. That's super important. If you do end up going with a glass panel here, you're going to have to be working with refractive materials, so then you're going to have to also enable refraction. So I'm just going to do that as well. So just enable the refraction down here in the drop down. So that is pretty much our render settings done. Now to make this look really good, we can just add in some HDRI lighting. Now you could just use conventional lamps, but just to get at kind of real world lighting that looks really good with a lot of dynamic and range to it, we're going to come here to our world settings, and we're going to click here on the little dot here and go to environment texture, and it's going to be an open option here. Now the one I'm going to be using, just for continuity's sake, if you guys want to follow along, so I'm going to put a link to this one in the description below, but you can use any one you really want, but this one I found works really well. So this is a HDRI, it's 100% free, you don't have to pay for it. And you can just come over here and just download it. I would recommend you can even just download it to 1K. It doesn't matter because we're not going to be seeing the HDRI itself. But if you want, you can go really high. So up to you. Just go ahead, download one of these. And I've gone ahead and I've put the HDRI on my desktop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go open, and I go to my desktop where I saved that urban courtyard HDRI. So just click on it and then go open image. So now we've imported the HDRI. And what we're going to do is we're just going to leave the strength for now at 1. And let's just go into our camera view here. So make sure, if you're not in camera view, just make sure to hit 0 to go into camera view. So we now have our render settings here all in place. So just make sure you do those steps there. And we have our lighting here via our HDRI. So if we now hit Z in our camera view and we hit rendered, so Z and then rendered, we're going to see this is what we have. So we have our lighting here. But what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to add in just 2 extra lights. So let's just go back into solid view. I'm going to just grab this light up here, hit X and delete. It's just one of the default lights. Shift A, I'm just adding in an area light. Then I'm just going to go to my right orthographic view. I'm going to move it to the back here where the window is. And I'm going to rotate it in like this, 90 degrees. S to scale it up, roughly the same size as the window. Just moving it down a bit, just like that. It doesn't have to be precise. And with this one, I'm just simply going to come over here to the light settings. I'm going to give it a strength of 80. And later on, we can come here and make the color here just a little bit more green, because we're going to be making putting an image out here with a little forest texture on it. It's going to kind of make it look like this greenery out here, and just having a little bit of green reflection in there, just going to kind of help blend it in a little bit better. So for now, we'll just leave it as it is. And we're just going to go Shift D and then Y. So Shift D, Y, and move this guy forward here. And then just hit R, Z, 180, and just rotate it around. So it's facing inwards. S to scale it up. S, X, scale it along the X. Just putting it out here. Now, by the way, if you're working in cycles, you can set these guys to portals, and they'll reduce a lot of the noise that you get inside of the bathroom. But since we're working cycles, we won't be looking at that. It's not. I don't even think it's an option with EV. So with this one done, we can just come here to the power, and I'm going to make it 230, and just leave the rest of the settings as they are. So let's go back into camera view. Hit Z and then go rendered, and this is what we're going to see. Now obviously at the moment it looks really powerful and like really bright, but it's because there are no textures or anything to this. It's just all white by default, so it's really quite intense. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get into adding textures. So obviously you guys need to actually download the texture. So just for continuity's sake, once again, if you want to use the exact same textures I'm using, I'm going to put a link in the description below. So the first one you need to download is this one here, which is the marble texture. Once again, it's 100% free. So if this one, you're going to come here to all maps, just click on it to bring the drop down option, and then you can download the 4K or the 8K here. Anything less, it's going to start getting a lot of stepping and it's not going to be as high quality. But if you have enough bandwidth and you have enough data, I would recommend you download some of these bigger files here, which are on PNG, which are higher quality. So go ahead and just download whichever one. So you can download, for example, the 4K one, and then it's going to download it as a zip file to your downloads. You can extract that file and then just drag those images that it extracts into a file on your desktop, and then just call that file a marble. So that's what I did. And then the same thing with the concrete here. So just come here, download one of these, extract the zip file in your downloads, create a folder in your desktop, just drag those images into there, call it concrete, and then that once you've done that, we can get into the materials here. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So I've already gone ahead and done that. As you can see here, I'll quickly show you. So I've gone ahead and just done it like this, just so you understand. So just these two folders here on my desktop, concrete and marble. This is what the concrete one looks like. To show you quickly, and then just the marble, just so you're 100% sure if you're following along, just so you get what I mean. So just those ones there. Once you've done that, the rest is super simple. So let's get into making some of our first materials. So let's start with the floor material. So I'm going to select my bathroom here. And to make things a little bit easier, I'm going to tab into edit mode, go to my face select, holding and shift, I'm just going to select these three faces at the bottom. I'm going to hit P and then separate by selection. Tab out of edit mode, grab the floor. The floor is now its own object. I'm going to go to our materials tab and just give it its own materials. Just go new. And let's just call this material floor. So I'm calling it floor. And once you've given it a material, we're going to go over here to our shading workspace. So go into your camera view here in the shading workspace, hit Z and then go rendered. So now you can see what's going on. So let's just come over here to our node setups. By default, you can see it has a principled shader, this floor material. So what we're going to do is go to edit, go to preferences, go to your add-ons, and then just search over here for Node Wrangler, and then just enable Node Wrangler. Okay, so that's really important because now what we can do is we can select the principled shader and then go Control T. And if we hit Control T or Command T, it's going to automatically add in these two nodes for us here. So these three nodes. So it's going to be a texture coordinate, a mapping node, and an image texture. So just move them over here. We're going to click on Open, and then go to our desktop, just like I explained earlier. And we're going to start by getting that marble material that we downloaded. So let's go to the marble folder, and we're going to get the diffuse map here. So click on the diffuse, and then go Open Image. And here you can see, but at the moment the scale is way too big. You could go into your UV editing and just scale it up. But what I like to do, just to make things a little bit easier and give us some more control, with this mapping node here, we can come here to the scaling. So take it from UV to generated. So let's plug the generated into the vector here of the mapping. And now you can come over here to the vectors and change them. So I'm going to make the top one free, make the bottom one free as well, and then this one here. So just you can bump these numbers up. So if you go into camera view, once again, just hit Z, make sure you're in rendered view. You can kind of see the scale we're dealing with here. So it's totally up to you for what you're going with. If you want to go a little bit higher, you can make these 5, whatever works for you. Okay, so once you've gotten the scale established, what we can do is we can start adding in some more of the different maps. So we've got the diffuse here. So let's select this guy here, hit Shift D to duplicate it, bring it down, plug the vector into the vector here, and let's go click on here and let's get the roughness map. So click on the roughness there, open image, and then take the color here and plug it into the roughness map here. Okay, so once we've done that, so now we have a roughness map applied. We want to add some texture. So with this guy here, select it, hit Shift D, bring down another one, take the vector here, plug it into the vector of this one down here, click on open, and we're going to get a normal map this time. Hit open image, take the color and plug it into the normal here. At the moment it's not going to do anything, so we need to go Shift A, search, type in normal, and get a normal map and place it on here. So now we have this guy converting it for us. and that should make it work. We can also come here to the strength and control the strength. So let's zoom in here. We'll just see what we can find. So at the moment, we're not seeing it very well. So what we're going to do is we're also going to grab this guy again, hit Shift D, bring it down. Then we're going to go here, click on the folder, and this time we're going to get a displacement map. So click on Marble Displacement, open. Then we're going to go Shift A, search, and get a bump node. Click on the bump node, drag the color into the height here, and then what we're going to do is move it forward a little bit. Take the normal here and plug it into the normal of the bump map. Take the normal output here and put it into the normal of our principled shader. And then obviously make sure to grab the vector output here and hook it up to the vector of this texture down here. And now you can see we have displacement. Now because I used a lower quality image just for quicker download, you can see it's a lot of the stepping here. So I definitely recommend if you guys download the higher resolution ones or even the PNGs. So what I'm going to do here is come to the strength on the bump, and I'm going to make it 0.3. And then we're going to come here to the strength on the normal and make it 0.5. And you can mess around with this. There's a lot of different things you can try. It's really up to you. And also depends on the texture you're using. So I'm just going to go maybe with something like 0.9 here, seems to work, and a strength on the bump at 0.3. And if you want to change the color, what you can simply do is just come up here to the top one, which is the diffuse map. Shift A, search, get a color ramp node, put it in here, and we can now make it whatever color we want. So I'm going to go with kind of like a gray. So I'm going to drag this guy into about here, click on this color slider, bring the value down like this, and then bring this guy up a little bit. And then I'm going to make that just kind of like a dark kind of gray, bringing the value up a bit. So this is the kind of tiles I'm going with, like kind of like a gray tile, and that looks pretty good to me. So that's the tile material done. Now to save us a little bit of time, what we're going to do is we're going to select all of these nodes here. So select all of them, right click, and then go copy. And let's select our actual bathroom here. So select the bathroom itself. And let's go to our materials tab and just create a new material, and let's call it walls. And you can see over here we have a material, and let's just select the default nodes here, hit X and delete. Then we're going to right click and we're going to go paste. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing. So let's start at the top here. So let's go to the top one, click on the folder here, go to our desktop, and this time instead of getting the marble that we downloaded, we're going to get the concrete. So go and get the concrete. So click on the concrete, and we're going to get the diffuse, open image. Then we're going to go and change the roughness here. So change the roughness to the roughness for the concrete. So I'm going to go to my desktop, concrete folder, and then I'm going to go to the roughness map, open that one, and I'm just going to keep working my way down. So now we got the normal here. So we're going to go open this guy, go to the desktop, go to the concrete folder, then we're going to get the normal map here, open, and then lastly the bump node. So we're going to go click on this one and change it to the bump one from the concrete. So go to the desktop, go to concrete, and let's get that bump map. Open image. And now if we go into our camera view, we hit Z and then go rendered, we should see this horrible mess over here. So let me just quickly figure out what happened here. Okay, so I forgot one thing we do need to do, because it's not just a flat plane, it's three-dimensional because we have a box. We actually need to come here and just come and change the flat options here to box, because we want box projection. Let's come here, change this one to box, go to this image here, change it to box, and then lastly the bump, just change that to box projection. So that should fix that problem there. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. Obviously the bump is way too high, so let's just come over here to the bump strength, make it 0.1, and come here to the normal and just make it 0.2 or 0.3, maybe even 0.1. So it just depends on what you're going for. And I'm also going to just take this color ramp here, drag this dark value all the way down, grab the slider here, bring it more down, and just make the value of it much lighter. Bring it down like that. So just something like that. And I'm also going to go over here to the vector, the mapping node, and go to these vectors here, and I'm just going to make them a bit smaller. So I'm just going to go something maybe like 2. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so that seems a little bit better. In fact, what we could actually do is just grab this bump node here, this color ramp, and just select it and hit X to delete it. And then we can just leave this base color here as white. So what we're going to end up getting is the white material, but we're going to get the kind of like bump effect and the reflection, the roughness map as well, but just with this white base color, which looks really good. So I really like the way that looks. It kind of looks like kind of some rough, kind of rustic looking plaster that's been painted over, and just gives some nice texture to our scene here. So that's pretty much our walls done. So what we're going to do now is just select that window frame we made in part 1. And we already gave that a placeholder material in part 1. So we're just going to come here to the principal shader and simply just bring that value down on that and make it more metallic. And that's pretty much all we have to do for that. So now we're going to select our bathtub, create a new material for that. Simply call this bath. And what we're going to do is just bring the roughness down for it to make it look reflective like ceramic. That's all we have to do there. Very simple. Then select the tap here, or the faucet, whatever you want to call it. We're going to hit new, and let's just call it chrome. And let's make it fully metallic on the principal shader, and then bring down that roughness just a little bit. And then we're going to select this guy at the top here, holding and shift select that guy, and then holding and shift select this guy with the chrome. Control L, and then just link those materials. So now they all have those materials, all the chrome bits. So that's out of the way, and now all we have to do is simply make our wood material here, which is super simple. So select this wooden paneling here on the side, and we're going to make this procedurally. So just go new, and let's just call it wood. And what we're going to do is we're going to go Shift A, search, get a noise texture, plug the color into the base color of the principal shader, then select the noise texture and hit Control T. And with the Node Wrangler add-on, it'll add in a mapping and a texture coordinate. And we want to just keep it as generated over here into the vector socket of the mapping. So make sure it's just the generated. And we're going to come here to the scale. We're going to make it 16. And that's the scale for the noise texture. And we're going to come to the mapping node here. And we're going to come to the scale here at the top, make it 120. And then 120 at the bottom. So for the X and Z vectors here. So if we actually hit Z and we go into rendered view, and we zoom in here, we're going to see not much. So what we need to do is we need to go Shift A, search, get a color ramp node, and put it in between the noise texture and the principled. And now if we drag up this black value here, like that, and we bring down this lighter value to increase the contrast, we can kind of see this kind of grain structure coming through here. And we're going to kind of leave the colors just as they are. We might actually just grab the white one here and just bring that value down a bit. So there we have this kind of like grain coming through. And what we're going to do is just bring that roughness down to make it a bit more reflective. So if we now zoom back, that is what we have here. So you can kind of, like I said, just mess around with it till you get something that looks good. Maybe not quite as reflective. So now we have that decorative wall there. In fact, I might come here to the scale and only make it 12. And just experiment and see what works till you get that kind of nice grain look coming through. Okay, so what I'm also going to do is I'm going to select the these guys over here, and I'm just going to give them that same wood material, and the same for the guy at the top here, just give that same wood material. So that's what we have there. So now we have the wooden material, the floor, the walls over here. You can see they look pretty good, and we have the window frame. We've decided not to add in a glass panel. So what we're going to do now is we're going to download another image, which is going to be like a foresty kind of backdrop, and we're going to just project it at the back here on a plane, and then it's going to look like it's looking out at like a nice scenic view. So if you go into the description below, you're also going to find a link to this image right here. It's free to download, so go ahead and download it. And I've just put mine on my desktop, so I've just taken that one, I've put it on my desktop. So it's just called Stream 97056 and so on. So you're going to download that image for free. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go Shift A, just add in a plane, RX to rotate it on the X 90 degrees. And we're going to move this plane to the back here. Just roughly there we'll do, and then scale it up. We're going to go new and call it forest or whatever. or just background. And then we're going to come over here, and what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the principled shader. We're going to go Shift A, search, and get an emission. Grab the emission shader, plug it into the surface here, then select the emission here and go Control T to add in some nodes here. So we get an image texture. We're going to click on Open and then go to our desktop. That's where I've put mine, and I'm just going to get that stream image, open image. Now if we go Z and we go Material View, we can actually see that. But we need to go to our UV editing here and go into our material preview, come over here to our UV editing, and we can scale this up till it kind of fits. But we also need to match up the scale of it over here physically. So we're going to go S, X, and just scale it along the X like this till it kind of looks the same dimensions as the image here. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just trying to create this backdrop here. Tab out of edit mode. So just kind of like projecting it onto here. Just try and match it up as much as possible. So really simple to do. And once again, just going back to our shading workspace, this is what the materials setup looks like. So let's go into our camera view by hitting 0. And we can just take this guy and just move it around. And we can also scale it. So just get something that works for you. So I'm just going to go with something like that. And once again, just go back into rendered view. And this is what we have. So now we have a nice nice outside view there, and we have the inside of a bathroom. And like I said in the earlier part, we want to grab this light that we put here, go to our light settings, and we just want to make it a little bit green. And this is going to kind of give this kind of green reflection coming in. And that's just going to kind of make it look like this, these plants out here are actually refracting light back into here, just to make it a little bit more realistic. So you can kind of just mess around with the color here. It only has to be very slightly kind of like a yellowish kind of green will do it, just to make it look a little bit more natural. Now you can get whatever image you want or actually model a scene back there. It's really up to you. But this is pretty much what I did for my materials. So let's quickly give this guy a test render and see what it looks like. And here we have it, a final render. And you guys can go ahead and add in all sorts of assets here, towel holders, little bottles, and just really make it into something cool. Now another thing we could do as well is just go back into our viewport here, just hit Z, go into rendered view, and I think we can come here to our render settings, drop down to ambient occlusion, and just kind of mess around with the distance here on the ambient occlusion, just to get a little bit more ambient occlusion in here. In fact, I think a value of about 1.8 meters seems to be really good here. So by default, it just doesn't look that good. So just bringing that value up, but you don't want to overdo it as well. Maybe even 2 meters, maybe even 2 meters on the distance. And let's quickly give that a bit of a render, and I think that'll look a lot better. Okay, so that definitely looks a lot better. So what we're going to do now in part 3, so this has been part 2. So in part 3, we're going to do a little bit of compositing in the compositor and just make this look even better. So I hope you guys stick around, check out my channel, and I'll be releasing that one soon as well.